The Oregon Ducks remain number one in the latest college football playoff rankings. A win over Penn State in Saturday's Big Ten championship game would ensure them of a first-round bye in the 12-team tournament. The other byes currently projected to go to number 2 Texas, number 8 SMU, and number 10 Boise State. Of course, pending conference championship game results. Oregon offensive lineman Johnny Cornelius has accepted an invitation to the 2025 Reese's Senior Bowl. The Athletic reporting UCF inquiring about the availability of USC head coach Lincoln Riley. Former head coach Gus Malzahn recently left to take the offensive coordinator job at Florida State. Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara has entered the transfer portal. He'll look to play his 7th season elsewhere. In his 2 seasons with the Hawkeyes, he threw for 1,522 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 picks. Free agent safety Micah Hyde re-signing with the Bills. He will begin on the practice squad. His contract with Buffalo ended after last season. He remained unsigned this season after previously contemplating retirement. In the association, Blazers off tonight. Losers of 6 of their last 8 games. They host the Jazz Friday night. Early indications, Scoot Henderson is questionable to return. At 8-14, Portland has the 3rd worst record in the West and 7th worst in the league. And ESPN Shams Charania reporting Suns forward Kevin Durant will be re-evaluated in a week after suffering a sprained ankle last night against the Spurs. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live on YouTube and Twitch. And now, Window Nation brings you on-demand videos. Watch Window Nation's window into 1080 The Fan. A new conference, a new standard.
If you are Oregon, who do you want? Ohio State, Indiana, or Penn State? I think there's only one scenario where Penn State gets in.
This is a Big Ten Championship Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here. Online at modspdx.com.
Holden comes in from the left, sets up, turn. It's going to be a pass. Gabriel could run. He runs. He scores! Touchdown, Oregon!
Big Ten Championship Week with Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and 1080 The Fan.
Insert monkey noises here. Because I can't do them. If I tried to do them, I would break.
Still playing hurt.
We're playing hurt.
Still playing hurt.
Rust has got my mic turned up as high as humanly possible. You're going to hear what sounds like an OPB-esque voice from me. Not a lot of inflection.
Was it like the old what is it, the delicious dish?
Yes. It's 100% what we're going with.
Yeah. Your balls look slightly misshapen.
Yes, a lot of sweatiness going on here.
It's because they've been rusting on a hot stove.
Dusty Harrell will join us shortly. He is down in Eugene, at Autzen Stadium. Obviously, of course.
I think I see him sitting down.
Is he sitting down?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. He's sprinting up the stairs as we speak now, and we will be joined shortly. Yes, I am back. Somebody on.
You sound terrible.
I told you, dude. I told you.
How's everybody doing today?
We're here, man. We're
better than Danny.
Better than me. So
wow.
Yeah.
I walk into this show and it sounds like I'm listening to NPR right now.
Yeah, this is like I
that was literally the joke he just made.
I literally just said
really?
I said OPB. So like I was going down the same line.
Yeah.
Or did I say NPR? I don't know. I'm on a few drugs too. So
yeah.
Oh great. This is my favorite Danny.
Right. No, I
you
wasn't.
Do drugs, Danny, every day.
I wasn't going to do TV last night, but our other co-host Tyree Smith had to sit out, and Joe was sitting there like, "Hey, man, it's only going to be a half-hour show tonight. Can you swing it?" I'm like, "Probably not, but we'll see what we can do." Yeah. I watched that show back last night, and I'm like, "Oh no,
yeah.
Oh, this isn't good." So. This is what we got to work with. Like I said, there's not a.
All right.
I've got the tea here. If I got to tap out, I got to tap out. But we're gonna make do with what we got. For those unaware, the reason I sound like this is because I yelled at my dog.
Yeah, right. I call baloney on this.
It's not like I wish I had a better story.
No, we know what the story is. Friday, the Raiders lose in crippling fashion to the Kansas City Chiefs. Saturday, USC has 2 pick sixes.
Good Lord.
We all know you were yelling at your TV, Meringue.
I know. I
will say I'm surprised after this morning that you're here with the whole UCF now pursuing Lincoln Riley thing.
It's convenient timing on recruiting day.
Yeah.
But No, I 100% just my puppy, who's 18 months old, almost 2 years old, somewhere around there. He isn't fixed because he was supposed to get fixed when I had right when I had my second hip surgery, and I just screwed up and I haven't got him back on it, and he's been getting a little territorial. And he showed his teeth to my wife. Ooh. And I was like, that's not going to happen. So I kind of went, roar, I can't do it right now because it will cause problems. But I felt my voice crack, and I went, oh no. Oh no, that's not good.
Another meringue injury in the most ridiculous way possible.
Yes. So
wow.
Yeah. I didn't think anything of it. I went and did the game on Sunday. And I did TV that night, and I was like, oh, that was really bad. That was a really bad idea. I thought, worst case scenario, I'll be fine. Turns out not fine. But I sound infinitely better than I did Monday and Tuesday. I called you on Monday.
Yeah, you did.
And there was nothing there. It was physically impossible to do radio on Monday. That wasn't going to happen. So, but here we are. So we if we get any good drops from this one, it'll be like, oh, I remember that time. That's when Danny was doing NPR voice.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I'm glad you're back, especially because I wasn't ready for the start of the show.
Trust me, I'm the most thankful for that.
Yeah, it would have been like Wayne's World when Garth was there. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, look, I'm in Delaware.
No, I had my pregame interview that I did for Duck's pregame show, which is why I come down here every Wednesdays. I do an interview. Went a little long today, but we're getting ready. We're gearing up. Big Ten Championship. Let's go, baby. And it's National Signing Day.
Indeed.
It's National Signing Day. We'll have Andrew Nemec on at 1 o'clock to talk all things National Signing Day. A busy day down here, obviously, in Eugene, and there's a lot of fallout, obviously, across the country. And, yeah, you guys mentioned it. What's up with Lincoln Riley? Maybe just going – are we going to see a college trade? Or are we just going to have him go to Central Florida? What's going on? You guys really that done with him?
Yeah, I don't think it's reached that level yet. I think there's probably a little bit of subterfuge on signing day more than anything else. So wow. I would say it's convenient timing for that to come out. Just throwing that out there.
The way that the record has gone down, each of the last 3 years, I'm sure that USC would be just fine with somebody else coming to poach him rather than having to pay him close to $90 million to go away.
I don't think they've reached that level yet. I think there are certainly some fans that have, for sure.
Did I see? Yeah. Are we 3 years into was it a 10-year deal?
Yeah, 10-year, $10 $100 million deal. 10 million a year.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, we'll dive into that.
They have no shortage of money.
We will. Well, I think they do because they're paying off all the lawsuits with the you have the sexual harassment. You have the Operation Varsity Blues or whatever it was.
Oh God!
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
What are we talking? Whipped cream bikinis here?
No. We're talking Aunt Becky from Full House buying her way into buying her kids into school.
There's Becky and what was it? Felicity Huffman too. I want to say
Felicity Huffman. Yeah. And Aunt Becky is married to Massimo.
Look, we've got our
Where's Stussy in all of this? Massimo's kids are getting in. Where's Stussy?
I mean, the juicy
Cavarici.
The juicy tracksuits are coming back, so why not?
Yeah.
Stussy's kids definitely go to Arizona State. I think that.
Right.
I mean, if Massimo's USC, then they're going to Arizona State.
Will Stussy join forces with Juicy, and then we got Juicy Stussy?
Heck yeah, bro. Heck yeah. All right. I have an update for everybody.
Go on.
I repaired my dryer last night. Successfully.
I saw the pictures.
Did you kick
Successfully. No. I had to replace the drum belt on my dryer. And YouTube for the win.
YouTube.
For the win. When I popped on the YouTube video and the guy said, what you're going to need is a Phillips head screwdriver, and then he stopped, I was like, dude, I got this. All I need is a Phillips head screwdriver. You're definitely going to get in. This is going to be
I know
easy.
that guy.
It took me like 45 minutes to do, and it wasn't that hard. But
45, I feel like that's an upset. Getting that done in under an hour.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was pretty quick. It was easy. It wasn't like anything too hard. But I will say that there was a point where I had taken off basically every part of that dryer and unplugged, and I had 20 screws, and I went, I am going to be so screwed.
I don't know where any of these go back.
If this does not work out, I am so screwed. And you have that little bit of panic where you're like, all right, I'm going to, in YouTube, I trust here. But there was a panic, a level of fear that I don't remember what I was just taking off. Like, if you have any semblance, I told my wife this. I think that if you are like a repairman, and I would love Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. I would love for a repairman to say how long it takes them, because I think start to finish, if you know what you're doing, you could do that in 15 minutes. What I did.
I think that's fair.
You could do it in like 15 minutes, just boop boop boop.
But yeah.
Maybe even less. But my dumbass was sitting there like, I was like pausing, rewinding, playing. I was like, I don't know how finicky a dryer is. I feel like it shouldn't be, but then I took it all apart
before servicing it.
Absolutely,
okay.
I did. That was the very first part of the YouTube video, and I will follow directions to the letter.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to turn things on before you serviced them.
Hey-o, I see what you did there.
Maybe that's what I've been doing wrong.
Guys, I did it, though. And I also had the realization that YouTube is glorious.
Oh, you can fix just about anything via YouTube.
You can do anything on there, but this is the same platform that made spoiled children millionaires by unwrapping gifts, but it also gave me like a gold man card, right? It made me feel like I upgraded my man card to gold, and YouTube gave me that. Like, for that brief moment, I was like, you know what? I'm a little bit more manly now. I can fix my dryer.
Felt pretty good about it? Yeah.
And from the same platform that gives us Jake Paul and get kids unwrapping things, it can also do that for you. And what an amazing place YouTube is.
So, and you didn't have any leftover screws after you put everything back together?
No, dude, I nailed it.
That's always the worst when it's like,
oh,
wait, I feel like this is important.
Yeah.
It's like putting the plane back together, and you're like, this is going to be a problem later.
Nothing a little duct tape can't fix, right?
I was asked this on Twitter by a few people. Why? Why did you do this? And it's a very simple explanation of this. The first was, my wife goes, you can do this. I don't think you can do this. And I was like, watch me.
What? That sounds like a challenge now.
When I got the, you could do this, I don't know if you could. I was like, no, I'm doing this. I am doing this. And so I watched the YouTube, and I did it. Now, here's the big one, though, and I don't think we're in the clear. The dryer works. We ran 2 loads last night. How long until I can feel comfortable with, like, it's not going to catch my house on fire? Because in the back of my mind, there's that, like, I'm going to be on high alert for a while that something may go wrong and we may have a fire at some point. I feel like I did everything right.
Were they big loads? Because I feel like if they were big loads, then you would probably know by now.
Just making that clean. You know what to do. Yep. Yeah, they were. They were. We haven't done laundry in a few days, so of course.
The number of people that don't realize that you're supposed to clean the pipes for your dryer,
like the lint trap, and
not just the lint trap, like the exit flow,
even the exterior,
that's like, if it's like, if you have an outlet that goes outside your house, there should be like stuff that comes out. If you go outside and there's not stuff that has been coming out of the dryer, you have a problem. You need to take a little snake in there and get it out, because it is like the quickest way to cause a fire. How many
euphemisms are we going to work into this opening segment?
I mean, I'm not even trying yet. Give me a chance. But yeah, very, very dumb. That, and also, I don't think a lot of people realize that there's a lint trap also in washers. That, like,
there is.
Why your water smells funny in your washer? It's because you haven't cleaned the lint trap and it's in your washer.
Yeah.
And it's just soggy nastiness that's being like run into your clothes.
Look at you with the public service announcement.
Look, just little simple things. Trying to help our bros out here. Just the same way you fixed your dryer. I'm just like, there's simple little things
what
you
we
can
need to do.
to main, especially as the things you learn as a homeowner very quickly through error, not trial and error. You only learn through error. Like, about that. Like the one that I shout out my HVAC guy who came out when my AC unit completely fell apart. I thought I had accounted for all of the filters in my house. There was one that I missed, and it was like black. I was like, oh. He's like, look, I know you just moved in, so this isn't obviously all you, but this is the kind of thing that could void your warranty. I didn't see it though, and I'm like, oh, appreciate you, but now I know like where that one's at too, and it was like, yeah, that could have been really bad. That would have been a problem.
Hey-o.
So it's the simple things that you learn that can come back to bite you. Vancouver Ford text line, as it pertains to the dryer vent, or your host of the dryer vent is disconnected if nothing is coming out. Yes, that's also a problem, which means fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it. YouTube.
Yeah. Fix it. YouTube's got everything. Fixes everything. Yeah, this is another good one. Dusty, it sounds like your wife knows how to push your buttons pretty well. I'm glad it wasn't a rattlesnake. She told you couldn't kiss. Nah, I will draw a line. I know my bounds. This one I was like, nah, come on, what's the worst that... Because here's the other thing. With the home repair, if it's something that I feel like it won't like completely destroy, I'm not above calling like an appliance repair guy and being like, dude, I made a big mistake.
Oh yeah. Oh, we've got to go to, like we talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
We've got to go to. We've called him 3 or 4 times to work on various appliances.
Yeah. I'm not above going like, hey, like I gave this a whirl and it didn't work. I'm gonna have to call in. I'm gonna have to call in for the closer here. And so I'll
do you
give
guys have any
things a
hard,
try.
fast rules on like things you like? I will not touch plumbing or like actual electrical. I won't do it.
No, yeah, I don't do electrical.
Like,
I've done electrical.
no.
Swap out some light switches, put in a dimmer instead of a toggle.
I'm
You're-
talking anything on the panel.
yeah.
Oh, on the panel? No. I'm not going to mess around with that.
I got
No.
blasted by 220, and I just won't that. And have I ever told this?
220,
Yes,
221, whatever
you've
works.
Told, You've told your story.
No,
You-
not just that one. Have I told the poo story?
Are we talking
is-
Winnie?
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
So
Go ahead.
I will never touch plumbing and or septic ever again.
Oh, yep. You've told this
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just say because
That ruined a lot of lunches that day too. I remember this
my
story
dad
now.
still like every now and then he's like, "Hey, I'm still sorry about that one.
Yeah.
I'm still sorry about that one."
Yeah.
When you have 15 years worth of gray water mud thrown on the back of your head from a house that was nothing, it was nothing but 4 women in it.
Not great, Bob.
I can't tell you the level of shower that I took. The water couldn't have been hotter. Or
No, you were
longer.
Ace Venturing that.
Oh God! I mean, Finkel's Einhorn would have been an improvement on the situation.
Wow.
I was like clawing skin off the back of my head. But ever since that moment, I'm like, I just don't go anywhere near. And I shouldn't say all plumbing, like kitchen plumbing, whatever. But like bathroom plumbing, I will go nowhere near.
Ugh.
Nowhere
All right.
near it.
Well, on that note, let's get this show on the road, shall we? We got a lot to digest
of
and talk
crappy
about today.
things.
We have, whoa, we have got
Welcome back, Danny.
National Signing Day today, which we will hit on the top of the hour. Andrew Nemec with the Recruiting Show with Andrew Nemec. He will join us at 1 o'clock to talk all things National Signing Day. Big day for the Oregon Ducks. Flips abound. The best class in program history, and there is one player in particular that we've got to discuss who just sent in his letter of intent. So we got a ton that we got to get to, and we got to get to the Blazers in the college football playoff penultimate rankings. This is Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Were they big loads?
All right, we will be joined by Andrew Nemec coming up at the top of the hour.
He's not busy today.
No, he's not busy at all. He is only the recruiting director, national recruiting director.
That's a light day.
I mean, for a guy like Nemec, when you cover, national recruiting for high school sports on SI and you host the recruiting show with Andrew Nemec right here on The Fan, today is your Super Bowl, and there's a lot of movement, a lot of big names flipping, switching, signing today in the world of college football, and the Oregon Ducks have had themselves a day on the recruiting trail. They currently have, according to Nemec, the number 1 recruiting class in the country as it pertains to rating per commit right now. They do not have the largest recruiting class in the country. They're right around 21 commits. So there's several other schools out there that have more commits, which gives you a higher points and all that stuff. But at 93.77 per recruit, that's their average. It is the highest in the country right now. Dan Lanning and crew have been active on the recruiting trail, and it had a couple of big flips involved in it, and one of them including a quarterback who is the top 10 quarterback in the country, number 1 recruit out of the state of Hawaii. And now this quarterback room is getting a little bit deeper because you get the kid from Hawaii, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I have not heard it yet. Well, I've heard Nemec say it.
That's a pro move right there.
Well, it's...
Go for it. Sound the vowels.
Sagapolutele.
Jaron Sagapolutele, well, whatever, Sagapolutele. That's a drop from Nemec.
That's a great
Jaron
one.
Sagapolutele, who
Look, man, it's
is
a lot of vowels.
from Hawaii, and he was a Cal commit. He flips today. He told Nemec he didn't even tell Oregon he was flipping until he announced where he was going.
That's fun.
So you've got, Sagapolutele. You have Akili Smith Jr., who has been committed for a very long time to this Oregon class. And then they got Mark Weipert, who is the Wilsonville High School quarterback who signed and committed today. He was a commit to Oregon State baseball as a catcher. And
have they done well at that position?
At catcher,
Yeah.
Oregon State, yeah, they have. But now he is signed with Oregon after an 8-touchdown performance in the 5A state championship game for the Wilsonville Wildcats. He signed with the Oregon Ducks today. So it is. It's been a busy day. That doesn't even include the flip of the number 2 corner in the country, Nate Offord, who was committed to Oregon, or not Oregon State, the other OSU, Ohio State. They flip him. You hold on to DeCorian Moore and Dallas Wilson, the top wide receiver recruits. Now you're looking at Oregon's recruiting class has kind of ticked all the way up, and you're looking at a top 4 class. Some services have them as number 2 in the country. Right now on 24/7, I just refreshed it. They are number 4 nationally overall, but still have the number 1 average per recruit ranking. There's one guy that I am fascinated by, though.
I think I know where you're going with this.
He just came through. His name is Toby Hastrup. He is a 4-star defensive lineman out of Texas.
By way of?
England.
That traditional football recruiting ground.
There, yeah, right? England.
Not that football.
They call it football, yeah.
So The Athletic has a story up, and they wrote this a couple of weeks ago, and I was floored when I was reading it. And it was before he had even taken his visit to Oregon, but he is a 6'4", 235-pound defensive end who runs a 10.7 in the 100-meter dash.
And when you see this kid, you immediately understand why everyone would be interested in him.
So he grew up. He's English, and he came
Jolly
to
old
Texas. Yep, he came to Texas, and he was running track. And as any good football program does, you have at least one coach who's on the track staff just to make sure you don't have any fast kids slip by you. And he had a football coach convince him to come out
for football.
Because again, he's 6'4", 230, and built like Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah. He didn't know anything about football. He literally asked the football coaches, "What is a first down?" And that's where your starting place is. By the end of his first week, after his first game, he had 12 offers.
Again, 6'4", 230, 10,700. And I know kids are different now, Dusty, than when we were in high school, and it's going to continue to happen. Have you ever seen a kid built like this in high school?
No. Well, you see them more often now, but I've never seen a kid who's never played football before come in his very first high school game. He had 4 sacks, and
Just
4 days later,
unadulterated talent.
4 days later, he had 10 Power 4 offers and 12 overall offers.
If I told you this kid ended up on Bruce Feldman's freaks list, would you be one bit
Not
surprised?
one bit.
Like,
Not one bit.
Like as a freshman.
Yeah. A guy who's asking what is a first down and then pops as a 4-star recruit. Yeah, you're going to look at the upside on that and you're going to say, all right, what are we going to do with this kid when we get him in a weight room, when we have him on a regiment, when we actually teach him the game of football and he really does start to learn what the game is all about. Now, there's a boom and bust factor with it, right? He in his first game, he had 4 sacks. Great start, right? He finished the season with 10, right? In 23 quarterback hits in 10 games. That, by any measure, is a very successful season, right?
Mm-hmm.
No ands, ifs, or buts about it. But you got a guy who may be a bit of a project, but yeah, he's a special one, man.
It looks to be a worthwhile project.
Yeah. So when he was 9, they moved to California, and then they moved to Texas right before COVID. And now you're looking at a kid who went from being a junior Olympian to being an Oregon Duck. He just signed with Oregon. He's a 4-star defensive lineman. Literally never had played football, and here he is now signing with the number 1 team in the country on National Signing Day.
It's we'll talk to Nemec more about him and others, but it is a really interesting. The thing that I really want to talk to Nemec about is, now that we're deeper into NIL and how things are going, like have things stabilized, or have they gotten more out of control, as we saw with LSU's quarterback defecting to Michigan, and kind of like what these last day defections kind of look like? Because there's been a couple of really, really big ones. Oregon stealing the cornerback from Ohio State, USC stealing the defensive lineman from Georgia back again, and Jakeem Stewart. Like, there's been a couple of like top 10 players in the country that came down to the wire.
I'll tell you, the interesting part is how teams are handling NIL now, with the House settlement going to be finalized in April, where you got this delicate balance of, all right, what NIL can be, I don't know, out there for these guys, when there's like essentially what they're calling it with the House settlement is a $20.5 million salary cap, right? How is this all going to change, and where are teams going to be putting their money, just somewhere down the road? Ross Dellinger had that article right before the other sports had their signing day a few weeks ago about how there were offers being written to guys with the House settlement in mind, with in-house NIL being a part of it. And it's kind of like we were talking to the Wild Wild West with NIL. This is even more Wild Wild West, because you have some schools that are looking in the future and what it may look like, and some are just going, right now we're just going to spend, when that may not be the best, or the most prudent financial way to go about building a roster in the future. We'll have more with Nemec at the top of the hour with him, because this is all really interesting. We got to turn and burn here really quick, and we got to get going on this. There's a storm of brewing down at USC. First is Rust with SportsCenter.
This is Big Ten Championship Week with Denny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks remain number one in the latest college football playoff rankings. A win over Penn State in Saturday's Big Ten championship game would ensure them of a first-round bye in the 12-team tournament. The other byes projected to go to number 2 Texas, number 8 SMU, and number 10 Boise State, of course, pending conference championship game results. Oregon offensive lineman Johnny Cornelius, he has accepted an invitation to the 2025 Senior Bowl. The Athletic reporting UCF inquiring about the availability of USC head coach Lincoln Riley. Former head coach Gus Malzahn recently left to take the offensive coordinator gig at Florida State. In the NFL, free agent safety Micah Hyde has re-signed with the Bills and will begin on the practice squad. His contract with Buffalo ended after last season. He remained unsigned this season after previously contemplating retirement. The Blazers, they're off tonight. Losers of 6 of their last 8. They host the Jazz on Friday night. Early indications are Scoot Henderson is questionable to return. Blazers currently 8-14 on the season. That's the 3rd worst record in the West and 7th worst in the league. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Russ at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Tired of getting dinged by subscriptions? We won't send you a bill. Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
On 1080 The Fan.
National Signing Day across the world for college football. Right now, the number, according to 24/7 Sports in their composite recruiting rankings, number one class in the country is the University of Texas. 24 commits overall, 4 5-stars, 14 4-star recruits, and 6 of the 3-star variety. Number 2 is Georgia with 5 5-stars. Number 3, and by the way, Georgia, not going anywhere defensively, signed the number 1 defensive lineman and number 1 linebacker. That seems pretty good. That seems like a good haul.
Useful.
Yep. Number 3 is the Alabama Crimson Tide, with Oregon coming in right behind them at 4th, and Ohio State rounding out the top 5. Auburn, Michigan, A&M, LSU, and Florida are the remainders of the top 10. See that number 10 recruiting class? That's why you're keeping Billy Napier around at the University of Florida. And when you saw the progress that DJ Lagway made, there it is right there. At 13th is USC, which I saw this yesterday, that somebody posted USC's 2025 decommitment list would be ranked higher than their 2025 commitment list.
Yep, and it includes one of those Georgia players. They had the top linebacker, edge rusher in the country committed. They had a 5-star wide receiver committed. They had a 5-star offensive lineman committed. I think they've lost 3 5-stars and 2 4-stars, if I remember right.
Wowzers.
A lot of that.
On the heels of all of this, our recruiting class falling apart conversation is that today it gets floated out there that Lincoln Riley had been contacted by Central Florida for their head coaching job because Gus Malzahn just quit to be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. So Mike Bianchi from the Orlando Sentinel.
Yes.
He tweeted out, judging by all the reports out there, Central Florida's on the verge of hiring Lincoln Riley, Scott Frost, Chadwell, Dan Mullen, Jimbo Fisher, John Gruden, Bill Belichick, Steve Van Gundy, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Foghorn Leghorn. There is so much that is being floated around this Central Florida job, but for Lincoln Riley's name to be floated out there in correlation to that, I was just like, there is no way that happens.
I say that would be a big deal.
Yeah. Shout out the writer for putting Foghorn Leghorn in there. I like a good Foghorn Leghorn reference as much as anyone, maybe more than anyone. But look, I mean, I can't speak for the fan base or everyone, but my general sense is, while people are definitely frustrated, particularly after the way the season ended, I don't think that USC is interested in moving on yet. I think the university itself is still there, particularly because the recruiting class right now it's kind of funny because the standard is the standard at USC as far as what they're supposed to do. Even if this is underperforming, it appears they're addressing what they need to be addressing. Most of their class is in the trenches for the most part. But the biggest question is, and it reared its head very early and very often for this USC team, is depth. And if they don't go out and do what Lincoln Riley did in his first year here, which is dominate the transfer portal, then real questions are going to start being asked.
Yep, and that's kind of where everybody is at, and this is where it's like that delicate dance that we're going to have to talk with Nemec about, is the delicate dance of how much money do you put into your high school recruiting and how much do you reserve for the portal? Because signing day right now, you have to build the core of your team through high school recruiting. Everybody does it. You look at every program. You fill your holes through the portal. Building a roster of hired guns, only a couple of teams every year can do that. And how effectively you can do that is to be determined. I mean, look at Colorado. Look at SC, because that first year, that's what Lincoln Riley did, like you said, right? They went into the portal and they went in heavy. Look at Indiana and Kurt Signetti, right? He didn't take high-level guys out of the portal either. He brought his guys. He brought a lot of the guys who had been developed at other programs that weren't the highly touted ones. Like, you've got to be very particular with the way that you pluck guys out of the portal, and there are schools that are going to be better at it than others. But the core of every team that you're seeing in the college football playoff conversation, they're all built off of your high school recruiting classes.
Yeah, and this is Lincoln Riley's press conference is literally going on right now. Ryan Karchi of the LA Times said USC will look to add a transfer quarterback in some form or fashion this offseason. So,
well, my.
You have one your senior quarterback. Obviously, they made the move to Maava down the stretch, and the one's hitting the portal. He's got that last year of eligibility left. But the USC gave him his opportunity, and it just wasn't quite there. Whether it was not on his shoulders or not, and they do have, depending on what recruiting service, the number 2 quarterback in the country, or number 3, I believe, in Longstreet, behind Bryce Underwood, who still has not signed at Michigan, by the way, from what I've seen.
I hope we have another mom holding a NIL hostage.
Well, I mean, the rumor is, and we'll have to ask Nemec about this, was that he got $11 million to go to Michigan. And that's such a, we talked about how, the early onset of NIL was going to be it's the wild, wild west, and the markets would readjust and all these things. But, did the market actually readjust, or are there going to be some schools that just say screw it and throw an obscene amount of money and kind of throw a wrench into all of this going forward? But
what's interesting in that conversation is that as schools have an allotment of money and they miss out on recruits or guys flip, money comes open and you see over-the-top offers coming late. And that's why you're seeing some guys that very late in the process are flipping. That's something I heard Nemec tell us on the Ducks pregame show just this past Saturday. I'm really interested to see kind of what Nemec has to say about that.
Yeah, I'm going through the a couple of the recruiting directors and just clicking on the things that they're retweeting out. The number of guys have been breaking. This player flipped. USC flipped Alex Graham, who was a long-term commit to Colorado. Oregon flips the cornerback at Ohio State, who was a long-time commit to Ohio State. Underwood was he was so done to LSU, it wasn't even funny. That was an upset of the century that he ended up leaving as LSU, and maybe he didn't when it all settles in. I feel like this feels like Jaden Rashada, and he kind of has Michigan by the short ones here, because if they've already put the money in, it's like, maybe make that $1 million more. You know what I mean? Because you've already committed. I can always go back to LSU. I mean, maybe you can't, but that's the leverage play that I think a lot of these kids are making at the very, very high end. But just going through it, maybe it's where we have more eyes on it now because of the way that we look at recruiting now. But it definitely feels like there's a lot more in that top 25 flips, super late flips, and that's got to be just such a pain for coaches across the board.
I bet it is a time of the year where not a lot of sleep is happening in those recruiting offices because of that. What you're talking about right there is these late flips of the top 25 guys. It's not done until they're signed. It never has been before, and this is the fascination that I have with the SEC getting all upset about it. Is they're upset that the apple cart has been turned over based on everybody else having an opportunity to do this now too, because they used to have their good old boys system where the bagmen used to just kind of work in the shadows, and there'd be a little infighting between the bagmen back and forth, and it was an SEC problem. You would see guys flipping from LSU to Alabama or Georgia to Tennessee, whatever it was, but you never really saw it on the grander scale outside of the SEC. Now with NIL, there's far more teams and way more money that they're having to deal with in that regard. All right, Andrew Nemec will be at the top of the hour. We have a suspension in the NFL that we need to touch on really quick because what a way to handle your contract year. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Oregon Ducks football is on the Fan.
right, a quick pull away from the world of college football to talk about a head-scratching suspension in the NFL. Well, not a head-scratching suspension, but a head-scratching move by one player. Deontay Johnson is wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. Pretty good one, too. He has been suspended for one game against the New York Football Giants for conduct detrimental to the team. When they were playing the Eagles, he refused to go in the game this past week.
Can one be suspended? If you're asking the question, can one be suspended for being a douche canoe? And the answer apparently is yes.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
And he may have not have wanted to go into a game that he was getting paid for. Now he will not go into a game and he won't get paid. So up yours, Deontay Johnson. That's what the Ravens are saying. And look, this guy is 28 years old. He's on his third team. He's in a contract year with the Baltimore Ravens on a team that is in a Super Bowl window. I mean, when he was in Carolina this year, he had 30 catches, 357 yards, and I think 3 touchdowns through the first 7 games before he was traded to Baltimore. And it was like, hey, if they can maximize Deontay Johnson, hey, watch out now. But he was a malcontent, and he continues to be a malcontent. And I don't know, if you can't go to Pittsburgh and thrive with the amount of crazy that Mike Tomlin has dealt with and maximized in Pittsburgh, this is the biggest I know he's in Baltimore, but if you can't go to Baltimore too, where you're in that division, and Mike Tomlin is like, nope, we're done with him.
Mike
on to
Tomlin's
Carolina,
throwing you out of the room when he dealt with the craziest crazy.
The craziest of crazy. And then you go to Carolina where there's nothing to play for and nothing to win.
And they don't care there.
And now you go back to somewhere that has a chance to win. And, oh, by the way, you could stick it to Pittsburgh if that is what you get your rocks off with. You can't even be happy with doing that. I don't know. Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, if you can't play for those two guys, I've got bigger questions. Because
they're used to dealing with egos and nonsense, and as long as you produce, you walk the straight line on Sunday or Monday or Thursday or Friday or whatever day, you're fine. They understand, hey, look, it's a business, and there's people that have, as long as you produce and as long as you shut up and do what you're supposed to do for those 60 minutes, you're fine. But
it's crazy.
The fact that you can't do that for those coaches who, again, their track record of dealing with stupid and high maintenance is maybe the best in the NFL, that just tells you everything you kind of need to know about Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's suspended for one game and in a contract year.
Imagine being suspended for being stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, in an NFL season where you have 17 games, your money is not guaranteed, that you get paid by the game.
Yep.
Losing that game check is that's not like you suspended in the NBA. It's not great, but there's 81 more of those things.
Yeah.
It's not that detrimental. Getting suspended in the NFL, that's a big old chunk of change because you ain't getting paid.
I'll tell you what, you should be happy that, R.I.P. Al Davis. Al Davis would have been like, I can fix him.
He does run very fast in a straight line, so you're not he would have given it an opportunity. There's no doubt about that.
But he would have been like, I could fix him. I can fix him. All right, a guy that fixes a lot of issues and nerves, calms the nerves on National Signing Day, and also makes people panic, is Andrew Nemec. He is the Director of National Recruiting for SI's high school sports, and he will join us next. Oregon having a day on the recruiting trail. He will give us the entire rundown. Oregon now holding the #1 recruiting class in 2025 and 2026, according to Rivals. Nemec will join us to break it all down next. This is Danny and Dusty on The Fan.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in
On The Fan, the Oregon Ducks remain at number one in the latest college football playoff rankings. A win over Penn State in Saturday's Big Ten championship game would ensure them of a first-round bye in the 12-team tournament. The other bye is currently projected to go to number 2 Texas, number 8 SMU, and number 10 Boise State, pending, of course, conference championship game results. Oregon offensive lineman Johnny Cornelius has accepted an invitation to the 2025 Reese's Senior Bowl. Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara has entered the transfer portal. He'll look to play his 7th season elsewhere. In his 2 seasons with the Hawkeyes, he threw for 1,522 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 picks. The Athletic reporting UCF inquiring about the availability of USC head coach Lincoln Riley. Former head coach Gus Malzahn recently left to take the offensive coordinator job at Florida State. In the association, the Blazers off tonight, losers of 6 of their last 8 games. They host the Jazz on Friday. Early indications are Scoot Henderson questionable to return. Portland sitting at 8-14 on the season. That's the 3rd worst mark in the West and 7th worst in the league. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. This week, a conference title and a college football playoff bye is on the line.
I think the team you want to play, like when you're talking about the team you want to play, is Penn State.
This is a Big Ten Championship Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here. Online at modspdx.com.
Gabriel with a snap from under center, rolling to his left. Wants to keep, now wants to throw, got him open. In the end zone, touchdown, Terrence Ferguson.
Big Ten Championship Week with Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and 1080 The Fan.
Hour number 2, Danny and Dusty with you on this Wednesday afternoon. The band is back together. Danny has got half a voice, but you're powering through.
I have 3 different drinks in front of me. I've already finished one tea. We'll reload and then add the energy drink to see if we can add a little more pizzazz to the voice.
Yeah, that should work out great.
Yeah, right?
To give you a little bit of a reprieve here, is the man that we just wind up and let him go, and today is his day. It's the Super Bowl day for the director of recruiting for high school sports on SI and the host of the recruiting show with Andrew Nemec. It is Andrew Nemec. Hey, happy holiday to you, my friend. Like, it's the holiday season, but this is your day. How are you?
The most tired day of my year. I triple fist coffee. It sounds like Danny's got 3 drinks in front of him. My go-to is like espresso, coffee, and a C4 to try to stay alive today. And so far, doing okay.
When did the day start for you?
I set my alarm for 4:25.
Oh boy!
And my last phone call ended at, I think, 1:12 a.m.
Oh, wow. So you got a solid 2.5 hours of sleep then, right?
Indeed.
You're rolling.
Right around there.
All right, it's been a wild day, and I think one of the teams that's making waves across the world of college football is the Oregon Ducks. What a day it's been. Can you give us the rundown here of what has turned into one of, if not the top classes in all of college football?
Yeah, so Rivals has this class as the number 1 class in America. On3 and 24/7 have it at number 2 or 3 or 4, but they have fewer commitments than the teams ahead of them. So both On3 and 24/7 have them as the number 1 class in terms of rating per commit. So depending on how you frame the class, On3, 24/7, and Rivals have them with the number 1 class in America. It started kind of with a thud in a sense. Lincoln Cure, who I had predicted would choose Oregon, I had talked to him and felt very strongly after our conversation that he was going to end up at Oregon, threw in that prediction. He stuck with Kansas State. I believe he committed on 24/7, and they said, how close was it? And he said, well, the graphic I had made for my commitments for Oregon, but I'm actually going to Kansas State. I changed my mind. That's how close it was. And it was like, wow, maybe Oregon's going to have some miss. I didn't feel like they were going to get Jakeem Stewart. That seemed like a USC lock to me for about 2 weeks. So maybe not. And then sure enough, Dallas Wilson, the 5-star wide receiver out of Tampa Bay Tech, who multiple folks predicted would flip to Florida. He ended up sticking with Oregon. Jaron Sangapolutele, who I predicted would choose Oregon, and then he revisited Cal, and then maybe not. He went to bed last night not sure where he was going to go. He kind of decided it would probably be Oregon. He is a 5-star on 3. He actually announced his commitment for Oregon without telling Oregon. They didn't know he was going to flip. There was no communication there, so they thought they lost out potentially to Cal and were waiting just like everybody else. So they flipped the left-handed quarterback from Hawaii, who grew up rooting for Dylan Gabriel and Marcus Mariota. And then 5-star corner Naeem Offord, who's the number 2 corner in the nation, an Ohio State commit, had really looked around for a long time. And everyone said, this is a close battle. And Ohio State has had his commitment, but Auburn's right there. Oregon's right there. We're not real sure what to make of things. And he kept things very, very close to the vest. You started to hear rumblings with Dallas Wilson, with Jaron Sangapolutele, that maybe Oregon was going to pull off one more shocker, and sure enough, they land Naeem Offord. They have 3 of the top 7 corners in the nation. According to On3's composite ranking, they have the number 1 and number 2 receiver in the nation, and they land a 5-star quarterback. All of that adds up to what 3 different recruiting services, depending on how you splice it up, consider the number 1 class in America.
Nemec, something Dusty and I were talking about earlier, and you kind of highlighted it there, is the late flips. Is it that we're just not aware of just how many guys have been late flips, or is there more to it now? Are guys becoming or leaning towards the late flips now, whether it's NIL, whether it's last push by a coach or whatever, or has this always been the case and it's just getting more coverage?
I think twofold. I think certainly there have always been flips. I think you get more of the surprise flips now to some extent, where you're like, whoa, I did not see that coming. Travis Hunter to Jackson State. I consider almost the landmark marker of this, when you go, okay, in the NIL era, you're occasionally going to just see an absolutely random commitment. The other thing you're seeing here, and we're watching play out, and people don't totally put this together. It's really important, and we did see this previously with Oregon when they lost Dante Moore. When you lose in the NIL era a potential big-time commitment, a Lincoln Cure, a Dante Moore, that suddenly gives you a little bit more flexibility maybe to make a push with a kid at the end. Again, in the NIL era, when your resources aren't claimed, those resources can be dispersed elsewhere. And so sometimes these things last longer and get tighter late because a team loses a commitment they expect to get, or somebody flips and they go, that guy was going to get $100,000. That guy was going to get $500,000. We can go splice that up and maybe make another run. So sometimes when one path closes or when one door closes, another opens. And I think that's where we're seeing more decommitments, is because it's a resource-driven game right now in the NIL era. When one kid doesn't choose you, it kind of gives you a chance to make a last run with another push elsewhere.
That's actually really interesting. It sounds very simple, but this almost sounds like the New York Stock Exchange, where guys are sitting there and all of a sudden there's a run on a stock, and all of a sudden you get a better price on something. Like this can't just be a coach sitting there doing this, or whether it's at Oregon or it's at Texas or at A&M or wherever else. This can't just be a recruiting director doing this. This has to be kind of a whole team, and it has to be like this very in sync model, of a business model of allocating and then reallocating resources on the fly. How different is that? I mean, look, we had bagmen always forever in college sports, but how different is it now that it's become like this almost exchange service where how different is that?
There is no salary cap, I like to say, and at the same time there is. I think the smart programs have essentially a budget for their recruiting class and a budget to keep their roster together, and hand in hand with that recruiting class is also the transfer portal. And I think smart schools allocate that money. Okay, we've got X amount I'm going to make it simple. I'm just making up a number. We've got $10 million for our recruiting class. Okay. How much do we want to spend on D-line? That's our priority. We need 2 D-linemen. D-linemen are expensive. Maybe we want to spend $2 million. Okay. Well, if you guys find a 4-star you really like and you can get for $400,000, maybe we can go make a big run at a 5-star for $1.6 million. If you can't and it balances out and we have to get one guy for 1.1 and $900,000, we'll do it. And as things play out, maybe you allocated money to defensive backs and you lose a kid late and you go, okay, who kind of struck out at their position, or where can we really bolster? Where do we have injuries, or where do we expect transfers? Where can we kind of reallocate this money to bolster our roster in the best way? All of that is done very much on the fly, and you're right. It's a very orchestrated, organized effort. But you will also hear the nightmare scenarios, and these have happened, where a collective works against the coaching staff. The coaching staff says, hey, this is kind of our budget for our guys. And a collective goes, yeah, but we really want to market with this linebacker we really like. So we offered him $1.2 million of your pool that you're working with. And we signed him. And the school goes, we didn't want him for $1.2 million. We don't want this player for that. That doesn't work. And so sometimes you have issues there where your collective and your coaching staff, or your collective and whoever the powers may be, aren't in sync, and it does create problems. And that's where you see guys jump in the portal right away saying, I never got my money. I never got paid. That's a miscommunication issue and a misallocation issue.
As we've been on the phone with you, Andrew, Oregon has announced that De'Aaron Hill?
Yeah.
De'Aaron Hill and Trey McNutt have both signed with Oregon, which now leaves only 2 of the commits that have not signed. One is Rocco Graziano, the kicker from Sheldon High School. Probably not expecting a flip. And then I believe Gavin Nix is the only letter of intent that they have not received quite yet, and he's the IMG linebacker that had flipped from Miami just yesterday. Is that right? And
this week, yeah.
Does it kind of seem like outside of this, like the hay is in the barn, or should Oregon fans expect anything else?
Yeah, I've been doing so many different things that I haven't seen, but I'm pretty confident that Andrew Olish's letter of intent has not come in to Michigan. He's the number 3 tight end in the nation, and maybe you can even look it up while I'm talking. My understanding is he's supposed to announce on Friday. Further, I think there's a chance that with Lincoln Cure not coming to Oregon, that Oregon may still make a push there. Again, that's a maybe. It's something I'd watch if his letter isn't in. That's another place where Oregon could potentially do some damage. But for the most part, I do expect Oregon to be, knock on wood, or I guess whatever you want to say. But I do expect that they're likely done. I don't see any more 5-star flips coming their way today. But it's been a wild day, so who knows?
Well, Andrew Olish has not signed yet, but DeCorian Moore has tweeted him, the Oregon 5-star receiver commit, waiting on you.
Yeah, and that fits what I'm hearing. I think there's a real chance that Oregon still adds him into the fold. He's torn, and he's waiting in part to see what Oregon's got with Lincoln Cure. They also already signed another 4-star tight end, so I don't think he wanted to go to Oregon as a 3rd tight end in this class. But with Cure being signed, sealed, delivered, Oregon would still like to add another tight end, and the number 3 tight end in the nation is not a bad way to go.
No, it's a decent spot to go to. When we had you on, I want to say 2 years ago, there was the idea of like the market settling in for NIL.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's still the case, or has there been a change, an upset to the apple cart with like the Bryce Underwoods of the world, where the rumor is he's getting a $10 million plus to flip from LSU to Michigan?
Not a rumor. He's getting $10.5 million to go to Michigan. I'll say this. I think in general, the wild, wild west era in which a kid can say, and this happened a lot 2 years ago, a kid could go to, say, get a commitment from, I'm making up schools, but like say a kid's committed to Washington for $1 million. Mm-hmm. He could then visit USC and say, Washington gave me $3 million. Are you going to match? And there was no real way to know. It was like, are we bidding against ourselves? Is that number real? And because it was so unpredictable, no one really knew. And so a few kids lied and were given massive overpays and then ended up not getting paid and hitting the portal because people figured out, oh, my God, we way overpaid market for this 4-star wide receiver. I think that is largely gone. I think teams that have a lot more discipline, they have a lot more knowledge and understanding of what the market entails. And to be honest, there's enough kids that know exactly how it works that if a kid that's a 4-star receiver asks for $2 million, you just go down to the next guy on your board and go, we can get a 4-star receiver for not $2 million. Let's not do this to ourselves. But I still think there is an aura, an excitement to NIL, and this is the caveat that I mentioned. I think it's not the Wild West as much anymore, except for the fact that I think sometimes celebrities or rich people, and we kind of saw this with Dave Portnoy, decide, like, let me make a splash and throw a few $1 million, and the excitement of we'll overpay to flip a 5-star will get us enough publicity, will get us enough stuff for our brand that it's worth it. I think that is still kind of new and a nuanced layer to this that we're not used to, that we haven't seen in the past. But generally, the unpredictable nature of how much a kid is going to get is a little bit washed out of things.
All right, Nemec is kind enough to stick on for another seggy with us here, and we will do that. We got national, and I want to talk to you about Oregon State's class as well, because with where they are at as kind of being in no man's land, the Beavs ending up with a top 65 class is what it's shaping up to be. So we'll go to the national and any other lingering thoughts that you have on the Ducks class and Oregon State as well. With Andrew Nemec, the Director of Recruiting for High School Sports for SI and the host of a recruiting show with Andrew Nemec right here on The Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to
The Fan.
We continue on with the director of recruiting for SI. He's also the host of the recruiting show with Andrew Nemec. It is Andrew Nemec. And Nemec, there are a couple other Ducks questions that I have locked and loaded for you, because in quite possibly the best performance we have seen in a state championship game, Mark Whippert out of Wilsonville High School picked up an offer from Oregon yesterday and signed with the Ducks today. He was a longtime Oregon State baseball recruit. What can you tell us about his development, his growth in the Ducks' new assignee?
Yeah, I think I differ a little from maybe what the traditional narrative would be here. So he says he's set to play quarterback, and a few years ago there was a player that came out of the state of Oregon out of West Lynn named Ethan Long. And by all accounts, he was going to play quarterback at Arizona State. And I'd watched his film and was like, he's an awesome H-back. He's not a college quarterback, but he's an awesome H-back. And talked to Coach Miller, talked to Ethan, and they're like, no, dude, I'm the quarterback. That's the whole thing. And he played quarterback for about a week, and then they moved him to H-back. I think Mark Whippert is a great athlete. I think he's going to be a great baseball player potentially at Oregon. And I think he could end up being a really hard-hitting safety or linebacker. I do not see a future for him playing quarterback, and that's not to take a shot at him. He's kind of like a three-star athlete, low three-star quarterback. But as we know, with the way Oregon recruits the quarterback position, I mean, even in this class, they landed Achilles Smith Jr. and five-star quarterback Jaron Sangapolu-Tele. I think it's a very, very steep climb to ever be a contributor at quarterback at Oregon. But I love him as an athlete, and I think you don't want to disparage a kid who's a baseball player and just a great athlete, because that's what Bryce Betcher was. Yep. And sure enough, that dude has turned into a monster.
And also a flip this week, another local guy that they end up signing is Zach Stakowski from Central Catholic. Offensive lineman, kind of putting up the barriers. Two guys that are local, a national, obviously, recruiting base, and it's not really a deep pool that you're fishing in the state of Oregon. What can you tell us about the UW flip right after the Ducks beat the Huskies?
Well, I've been ahead of the curve occasionally with a handful of Oregon players. I had Luke Musgrave as the number one player in the state of Oregon when he was 16. I
remember you were pounding the table on Musgrave.
I was. I had Justin Herbert as a four-star quarterback when he was not rated everywhere, and said I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks I'd ever seen coming out of Oregon. I've had Zach Stakowski as my number one player in Oregon since he was a sophomore in high school. This is a kid who Steve Pine swears has NFL potential. He's finally come into his own. He's always been tall, but he wasn't real big. He wasn't, 270, 280, 290. He's put on a really good 50, 60 pounds in the last 2 years. And you look at his fall film, and he's picked up offers just in the last few months from Georgia, Michigan, UCLA, Oregon, and was invited to the All-American Bowl. This is a kid whose stock has absolutely skyrocketed. Pay no attention to the fact he's a low four-star prospect. I would be shocked if Zach Stasowski, even if it ends up being like an undrafted practice squad player in the NFL, I just don't see a scenario outside of injuries, knock on wood, where he's not eventually at least partially an NFL player. He's that good. He's that physical. He moves that well at his size. This is a steal for Oregon, and it's a steal that comes from their own backyard.
Nemec, it's the National Signing Days is the big day, but what's next for the those top 15 programs in the country that are going to go hit this transfer portal now? What is Oregon looking at? What is you've already seen some of the defections of coordinators like Arbuckle going to Oklahoma and it's going to Fresno State. Like where do you kind of see things kind of shaking things up as like a John Mateer likely follows to Oklahoma, or Jackson Arnold is this kind of 5-star prize in the transfer portal, and kind of what's the shakeout from that?
Sure. I think the dirty little secret, right, is that this has already started, mm-hmm. right? I've already reached out to a number of players from mid-level programs who were all conference as sophomores, as freshmen, and said, hey, just checking in. Like, what do you got going? What's cooking? You staying? Are you going? What are you doing? And a lot of times, whether people like to hear it or not, those kids enter the portal knowing exactly what they're going to get and where they're going to go. Mm-hmm. It's done. So it's amazing, and I know this doesn't exactly say what's next. Doesn't really answer your question, but I can't imagine being a college coach, like whether you're a Dan Lanning or Mario Cristobal, on the bubble of making the college football playoff. They're managing a recruiting class where there's no salary cap and people can miss out on a kid and suddenly up their offer by $1 million the night before you're supposed to sign them, and you've had a multi-year relationship. You're trying to, through third parties, feel out whether or not you can upload your talent or upgrade your talent from the transfer portal before guys are in the portal, and you're trying to coach a football team and keep kids out of trouble, because there is that.
Yep.
I can't imagine doing all that. So what's next? I don't think college coaches, I think this is why college coaches are leaving in some cases the sport. There is no next. It's constant, and it's everything all the time. It's everything everywhere all at once for college coaches. I think, yes, they're coaching their teams. They're trying to fill out the roster for next year, and they're still recruiting, and that's the never-ending life of a college football coach.
Let's talk about the Oregon State Beavers. Their recruiting class, 65th overall nationally, but still coming through in getting a recruiting class together that is punching up and better than some of the Power Fours. I mean, they're ahead of Vanderbilt, North Carolina, Louisville. They end up grabbing as one a junior college signee in Jaleel Tucker, who was a former Duck and a 4-star recruit when he came out of high school.
Yeah, I think there's some good and there's some bad, and I don't like being the bearer of bad news, and I know Oregon State fans are already not happy with me for a Dirt and Sprague interview I did yesterday. Here's the truth, and this is factual. You can look it up. In terms of average rating per commit, this is their worst class in 5 years. And they've had some not great years in that span. They had a class in 2021 that finished 109th nationally. That class had 3 players, even being 109th nationally, 3 players who were in the top 750 recruits in the country. This year they have 1 player in the top 1,000, and all the rest of their class is outside the top 1,000 recruits in the country. Compare that to even just a couple years ago when Aiden Childs was an All-American selection. They had multiple 4-star prospects. And yes, it's better than San Jose State and San Diego State. But if we're talking about the lineage of Oregon State recruiting, it really does speak to how being in no man's land and unfortunately being left behind from the Power Five has impacted things. And the answer to that is very, very quickly, very rapidly, and unfortunately very, very ferociously. This is a program that lost a lot, the transfer portal, and it seems like that momentum has also played out on the recruiting trail. I do love Westland offensive lineman Jake Normoyle. I love that kid. I think he's going to be a multi-year starter. But even now, and this class isn't done, Tristan Tia, their 3-star quarterback, has not signed. And Cal lost Jaron Sangapolu-Tele. I would keep an eye on that. Tristan Tia, the number 2 kid in their class, might be a late flip. It's certainly something to keep an eye on until he signs.
Oh, rough.
I feel bad. I genuinely do. I like Oregon State, and I genuinely. I mean, a lot of the kids on their team are kids that I covered when they were in high school, so I know them. Yeah. I like them. I don't want them to do poorly. I started covering Darius Clemens when he was in the 7th grade coming to camps, and he was, at the time, getting physically dominated against really good high school football players who were juniors and seniors in high school. And then suddenly by 8th grade and freshman year, he could more than hold his own. Trent Walker's a kid that I picked out as a sleeper when he was a junior in high school. I want those kids to flourish. But Oregon State's in a really tough spot. Yeah. And sadly, when we talk about the transfer portal, any freshman or sophomore that does pop out of that group that's in the top 1,000 recruits or whatever in the country, teams are going to try to buy away from them. And that sucks. I mean, it's just not fair to that program, but it's kind of the modern reality of college football.
Oh, Nemec, thank you for giving us the extra segment. I know it's a crazy busy day for you. Get back to work so you can wrap up the day and go get some sleep, man.
Yeah, thanks. I hope drink some tea and get your voice figured out.
Yeah, well, hoping that's enough. But thanks for hopping on with us, man. Andrew Nimick, obviously, Andrew Nimick with the Recruiting Show, Director of Recruiting for SB Live, and all over the recruiting things all over the country has you covered all the time.
Appreciate you, Nemick. That was awesome.
Coming up next, worst day on the web. If you're going to come at spam, you better come correct. But first, here's the Big Kahuna with the Sports Center update.
That's that Hawaiian burger joint.
This is Big Ten Championship Week with Denny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys into whom you can place your trust. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks remain at number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. A win over Penn State in Saturday's Big Ten championship game would ensure them of a first-round bye in the 12-team tournament. The other byes currently projected to go to number 2 Texas, number 8 SMU, and number 10 Boise State. That, of course, pending conference championship game results. The Athletic reporting UCF inquiring about the availability of USC head coach Lincoln Riley. Former head coach Gus Malzahn recently left to take the offensive coordinator job at Florida State. Over in the NFL, the Jaguars have placed quarterback Trevor Lawrence on injured reserve after suffering a concussion on Sunday. Free agent safety Micah Hyde, he has re-signed with the Bills and will begin on the practice squad. His contract with Buffalo ended after last season, and he remained unsigned this season after contemplating retirement. In the association, the Trailblazers are off tonight. They've lost 6 of their last 8 and host the Jazz Friday night. Early indications are Scoot Henderson is questionable to return. At 8-14, Portland has the 3rd worst record in the West and 7th worst in the league. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Got a smart speaker? It's The Fan in your office and every room of your home. Tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
For more than
It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Well, that sucks.
Spam's been around for a long time, Dusty. Real long time.
Spam and eggs.
A little spam musubi.
Ooh, wee.
Well, when you're around that long, you know you best come correct. And Nathan Zagura of the does a Daily Browns podcast, and he compared Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson to Spam.
Oh, okay.
A spam sandwich.
A
if I remember
spam sandwich,
correctly, yes.
to be precise. Spam has since come back with quite the rebuttal, a full length press release, as it were.
Okay.
Looks like it was definitely authored by the social media manager and not the PR spokesperson.
Okay.
Dear Mr. Nathan Zagura and Cleveland Browns Daily, it has come to our attention that during a recent episode of your show, the Spam brand was, how should we say, rather unfortunately compared to Mr. Deshaun Watson, which already shot fired number one.
Mm-hmm.
While we at Spam relish the opportunity, which that just feels like a little play on words, right? To be mentioned.
If you're eating spam and relish, you're an absolute monster.
I mean,
So, Danny.
Okay.
it's hot dog in a can. Who are we convincing here?
Yeah.
Like,
Lips and a-holes.
come on. It's not that far off. I mean, if you wanted to go full monster, you take 2 pieces of Spam, you grill it in the pan, you throw it on flat bread, and you basically treat it like a flat hot dog.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, he who has not been poor enough to go down that path, throw the first stone. But they relish the opportunity to be mentioned alongside Cleveland's beloved football culture. We must address this troubling analogy in the most professional, albeit slightly amused manner. Spam has proudly satisfied millions of our loyal fans since 1937. If I told you that Spam had been around for nearly 100 years, would you believe that?
Yeah, because they've been making hot dogs for longer, so they needed the rest of it to go somewhere. So that makes sense, you know?
They go on to highlight a few other things, but then they go and list all of the reasons how Spam is not comparable to Deshaun Watson.
Hey, God bless Spam. You know? Never accused of sexual assault.
Right.
Spam.
Or being bad at football. Number 1, Spam brand never fumbles. We may occasionally jiggle, but we never drop the ball.
Oh, hey-oh.
Hey-oh. Number 2, Spam is a team player. Spam Classic is an essential ingredient in countless recipes, bringing people together in kitchens worldwide. Number 3, Spam knows how to perform. Whether fried, baked, or grilled, Spam Classic delivers you consistent results every time. Number 4, Spam has a clean record.
See, there we go.
You'll find no scandals in the history of Spam, just good, wholesome fun.
Absolutely.
Yikes, dog.
You know what is really hard to find? Because I was going to... what are the annual sales of Spam? The meat. What would you think it is?
It's at Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Like, I feel like I've seen, like, weirdly enough, I feel like I've seen it at Thanksgiving.
Dude, what do you think? Oh my gosh. What do you think the annual sales of Spam is? No, this is Hormel Foods. Okay, good.
Yeah, because Hormel is huge.
All right. Never mind. No, I'm trying to find the annual sales for Spam itself.
Yeah, I was looking too, and that is a big number that we just saw, but I believe that is just Hormel and not
That's
Spam.
Hormel. Yeah.
Well, the latest one that I can find is that Spam brand has sold over 9 billion units across 48 countries. In 2022, 12.8 million cans of Spam. 12.8 cans of Spam were consumed every second. In 2012, the 8th billionth can of Spam was sold. And an article from CNBC in 2021 said that Spam had hit a record high for sales in their 7th straight year. So, I mean, the Hormel shares, again, this is now 3 years old, jumped 5% in 2021. And they saw a massive increase in sales. The biggest part of that increase was Spam.
Well, yeah, it's the miracle meat. because it's a miracle that it's from so many different animals.
Just in Hawaii alone, and this is actually a new article from just a few weeks ago, how many cans of Spam do you think Hawaiians alone eat per year?
Yeah, like individually, each Hawaiian, or are you talking
total
the
consumption of the
islands?
islands.
The islands themselves. Ooh, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go a million cans of Spam on the islands.
7 million.
Wow. That is a lot of Spam. Think about that. There's only like 1.5 million people that live in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
They eat seven. So each person's eating
eats
7 cans of Spam a year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh! Single-handedly keeping the
and you got a
poor
fair
melon
amount of
business.
vegetarians over there. So I mean, like it means some people are picking up a lot of slack.
Yeah, I don't buy that. Wow, that is so many cans of Spam. I'm floored by that number. That's literally, it's over 6 cans of Spam per person in Hawaii every year. Golly.
And not one of them is bad or as tainted as Deshaun Watson.
No. Spam wasn't wrong. Spam wasn't wrong. And I applaud their social media manager for coming at whoever that was that criticized their, I won't call it fine, their meat product.
Meat product?
I'll just call it, yes.
Meat byproduct?
Yeah, it's a meat product of meat byproducts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's our worst day on the web.
Keep going. Do you come at Spam, you best come correct.
That's what I'm saying, man. They get almost 100 years of experience, man. They've withstood the test of time, unlike Deshaun Watson. So
that's right. Yikes.
Coming up next, speaking of test of time, an old-time head coach wants to get back into the game. We'll get to that here next on Danny and Dusty, 1080 The Fan.
A rivalry win.
Sets up, turn.
I was up in Seattle for the preseason game between the Portland Trailblazers and the Los Angeles Clippers, and all of the Seattle luminaries were present. You had basically the entirety of every famous Seattle Supersonics in attendance. You had a lot of the Seattle Seahawks, including the head coach and general manager. And you saw a lot of people schmoozing, rubbing elbows, and then in walks what you would think would be royalty of the city. Pete Carroll and his son walk in, and it's our grandson walked in, and there was a palpable roar through the crowd, and he gave the nice little Miss America wave, and he signed every autograph and took every picture, and he held court in a way that only legends can. And, you know, Pete Carroll's been away from the game of football for a year now, and it turns out he wants to come back. And, or at least that's what's being reported now, as Yogi Roth hopped on with Kay Adams, and Yogi, he said Pete wants to come back.
There's a ton of viable candidates. I'll be really curious to see where they net out. I mean, you go back to last year and you think, oh, what if they did hire Jim Harbaugh? I know you're a big Chargers fan.
Mhm.
You know, that could have been a big get. I know this. I know Pete Carroll wants to coach. This guy is a crazy competitor. I don't know if that's the place or not, but I know that since he finished coaching in Seattle, he has not stopped competing. I mean, I talked to him. He's still coaching me up on being a better husband, being a better father, being a better minority owner in the Paris Musketeers. His energy to coaching is still there. So who knows how that shakes out. Another bunch of other openings, of course.
Pete
Sadly, that's
Carroll.
how NFL goes.
Ooh.
It's not like Yogi's dropping that out of nowhere. Obviously, Yogi Roth was a coach at USC, and he has a relationship with Pete Carroll. I would imagine Pete was like, hey, I want to put this one out there for me. I love Pete Carroll. I love what he did for USC and the memories that he gave me and how successful he was with Seattle. I don't think you can argue about how good he is of a head coach, and he's one of the best of all time. And I do hope that he comes back in some capacity. But, Dusty, age is a factor here.
He is old, man. He is old. And at 74 years old, I don't know who's going to take the flyer on Pete Carroll. If you're looking for a bridge coach, then yeah, you go and you get Pete Carroll, but you better know who you're going to be hiring after that. And if it's an NFL job, it's going to be a job that you're not anticipating is going to be a hot job that a lot of people want, because when Pete Carroll's getting hired, he's 74. And it's not a win-now job. Win-now job everybody's going to want. You know, the Chicago Bears, they're going to want a coach that is in a win-now mode, and we can pair him with Caleb Williams into the foreseeable future. That's going to be an attractive job for coaches. It's going to be a job like, I don't know, if Jerry Jones fires Mike McCarthy, and it's like, who wants that job right now where their salary cap is hell? It's going to take a couple of years so they can kind of unravel it and get right, but it's at a prestigious name. I mean,
that's who UCF
know.
is actually hiring.
Central Florida, if he goes back to college, he will get eaten alive on the recruiting trail, because it's like the coach, exactly what will happen. What happened to Mac Brown will happen to Pete Carroll, which is he still sharp? Yes. Is he still charismatic? Yes. Has he forgotten more football than a lot of head coaches will ever know? Yeah, he has. But what was used against Mac Brown in recruiting is he's old. He doesn't understand football now. Heck, you may sign here. He's not going to be there in 4 years. He might not even be there in 2 years for you. So that is going to – college football, I just don't see that happening. The NFL, maybe, but what job? He and Belichick are in a really tough spot of which franchises would want to bring him in knowing it's only for a short time.
It's an interesting spot to be. He's been around at USC as a professor, and that's the line you can draw very quickly as far as Pete can come in and fix this. I would not be against Pete coming in as a part of the staff. That I wouldn't be against that, because I think he can paper over and maybe get Lincoln Riley to understand what he needs to do, because even in this era of NIL, Pete understands this stuff. That's why they were so good when they were, is because they were doing stuff that teams are doing now 20 years ago. I mean, that's the reality of it. And helping Lincoln Riley understand that you can't run a military school at USC would probably be a path that would be beneficial to them. I mean, it would require Lincoln Riley putting his ego aside, and I don't know if that's not even just a Lincoln Riley thing. That's any head coach. When a head coach of Pete Carroll's standing comes in, you're going to look over your shoulder. But instead, if you take that opportunity to grow from it and learn from it, I think it would be a massive boon for him. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I think it'd be a very interesting proposition for Pete.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, we'll see. I'd love to have him back in football. He's great for football. But I think where Pete Carroll may make his biggest impact is in the next wave of college football, which is the front office of a school like USC, right? Where he's a president of football operations at USC. That way you essentially have him as the boss of the head coach, where he can be mentor, guide, but also works hand in hand with what is now a very prominent role, which is general manager in the world of college football.
Yep, and I think that's the perfect spot for it. And I think that's a world that could keep the Chip Kellys, the Lincoln Rileys, the Cliff Kingsburys of the world, the guys that just want to be football coaches, as those general manager roles become, I think, the young man's game, where the president role becomes kind of the overseer. And that's where the old ball coaches who understand the game, again, like the Pete Carrolls, the Mac Browns, as crazy as it is to say, the Greg Schianos of the world, can ultimately end up. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here, I've got 40 years worth of wisdom. Let me lay this down for you. And I think that's an interesting spot for Pete to end up. All right, let's keep it in college football. It is Big Ten Championship week, and the Oregon Ducks are in that. And I haven't got to talk about it, but we've played the drop already coming into the show a couple different times.
Oh, just wait till the 3 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's perfect. Of the best path for Oregon is to face Penn State. So let's talk about Penn State, Oregon, coming up here next here on Danny and Dusty, Today the Fan.
I'm Michael Jenkins.
Ducks versus Penn State.
Aller backpedaling. Now fires high and deep. It's not to the end zone, and it's intercepted.
This is a Big Ten Championship Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here. Online at modspdx.com.
If you're talking about which quarterback I trust the most, Drew Aller is so far in the distant third, it's not even funny.
Big Ten Championship Week with Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and 1080 The Fan.
It is indeed Big Ten Championship Week, and it is, in fact, me saying I don't trust Drew Aller. Whether you're listening on 1080 AM, whether you're watching along youtube.com/1080am The Fan, or twitch.tv/1080am The Fan, we appreciate you. We love you. And you also should not believe in Drew Aller. But we'll dive into Oregon Penn State. It is Big Ten Championship Week, the one of 10 possible outcomes coming out of the weekend for Penn State happened. It happened. Michigan does the inevitable and makes Ryan Day lose yet again.
Yeah.
That much lauded and ballyhooed Ohio State recruiting class from 4 years ago goes 0-4.
Wah, wah, wah.
Against the Wolverines. Penn State takes care of business, and it all lines up for Oregon Penn State in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship game.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun game. This is going to be a good one, man. The line sitting at 3.5. I know a lot of people are maybe a little bit shocked by that. Dude, Penn State, because of Drew Aller, I think the taste of Drew Aller and the fact that in games against top 20 defenses the last 2 years, he's only completed 56% of his passes. He's averaging 150 yards through the air per game. Doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. That's just who Penn State is. And like what they do is they just try to sit on you for the entire game, right? It's like watching an MMA fight where it just goes to the ground and they're just rolling around for a while and just waiting for you to slip up. That's kind of how they play, right? Mm-hmm. Oregon will kind of dance around for a while and they'll hit you with a couple knockout shots every now and then. But they kind of play a similar game of they're going to suffocate you over the course of 60 minutes. And that's why like Oregon isn't blowing teams out with explosive plays and lopsided scores that we came accustomed to seeing with Chip Kelly, right? Back when they were playing for a national title. It's a little bit different in the way that the games look. And even with that style of play from Penn State, they just beat Maryland 44-7. Mm-hmm. Right? Maryland came into Autzen Stadium a few weeks ago, and they played Oregon tighter than 44-7. Right? That game was never in doubt, and Oregon wasn't at full strength by any stretch. But this Penn State team has crushed their opponents too. I mean, they beat a Purdue team on the road 49-10 that Oregon beat 35-0. Right? They beat them by 39. Oregon beat them by 35. Purdue found a way to score, which is crazy that they scored touchdowns this year based on having seen them in person. Right? This Purdue defense is for real. And everybody talks about the front seven, and rightfully so, because Abdul Carter is an absolute menace. But Kobe King in the linebacking core, their secondary, their corners, they might be better than what Ohio State threw at Oregon on at corner. Because A.J. Harris and Jalen Kimber, two guys that at one time were at Georgia, and they transferred in. I think Kimber went from Georgia to Florida and then up to Penn State. But A.J. Harris is a Georgia transfer, right? It's not like these guys are schlubs off the street. They're really damn good on the outside. And they can play one-on-one. They can man you up, and they can try to bring the fist fight to you. Every level of their defense is really good at Penn State. That is how they're winning. It's kind of similar to Oregon, too, where it's like everybody thinks of Oregon as offense. Oregon's defense has been leading the charge, and they've been really stinking good all season long. That's where Penn State is built. They're going to try to take the run game away from Oregon. They are going to probably be effective at slowing Oregon's run game down, but I think where this game comes down to is that separation at quarterback. And Drew Aller is the one that everybody's going, he can't win you a game. And that has been his shortcomings, and that has been the shortfall for this Penn State team. But with Tyler Warren, who's not a Swiss Army knife, he's a Leatherman because he is more bulky. He can do more gritty things. He's a weapon, man. 6'3", 250, can just run you over. That dude is a menace on the outside, on the inside. They put him at tight end. They'll put him in the slot. They'll put him in the backfield. He's throwing passes. And their run game is nasty, too, now that Nick Singleton, they got a lot of thunder and lightning with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton in the backfield. Dude, Nick Singleton is catching form later in the year. He's their speedy, quicker back, and he's been really effective lately. He was dinged up a little bit earlier in the season. This is an offense that can pose some problems if they can sustain drives and stay on the field.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
With Penn State, I think James Franklin is a hell of a coach. I genuinely do.
He is.
I do not believe in Drew Aller, and I do not believe in that offense. I've watched Penn State play a couple of games, one of them obviously against USC, and they very much strike me as paper tiger. Their defense is real. That offense I do not buy at all. Like, don't get me wrong. Warren is a hell of a weapon. He's very unique. 6'6", 260-pound, like you said, Leatherman. He does everything. He can run out of the backfield. He can receive. He's everywhere. But I mean, this is a team that should have lost to USC had a single flag been thrown. This is a team that barely escaped against Minnesota just 2 weeks ago. Yes, they beat the brakes off Maryland, but you look at their throughout the season, their inability to score or be consistent or be on time. This is not a new thing with Drew Aller. You go back last year. Their losses they had were to Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah.
Against Michigan, he was 10 of 22 for 70 yards. Against Ohio State, he was 18 for 42 for a $191. Like, you look at any time that they have played anybody. He plays Illinois and they win 21-7 this year. He's 15 of 21 for a $135, no touchdowns. The one thing that he does is he takes care of the ball.
He takes care of the ball at an amazing rate.
Insane level.
He's running the ball a little bit more this year than he has in the past. And here's the thing with Drew Aller and Penn State. They have a quarterback that obviously has proven big games against very good defense. He is not the guy who's going to hop on my back, let's go win a game.
He's not even going to make plays for you.
But this team ranks 14th nationally in third down conversions. Because here is where the game's going to be won and lost for Oregon. It will be, can you put Penn State in third and long? Can you put Penn State in a position where Drew Aller has to throw the football? Because what they do, and the reason why they convert dang near 50% of their third downs, is because they are first down chunk, second down, you get a little bit more and you're in third and manageable. And in that situation, they are not a team that is going to convert a lot of long third downs. That's just not how they're built. That's not the way they want to play. Against Penn State, or against Ohio State this year, they were 3 for 11 on third down. And they only scored 13 points, right? Every other game this year, they're converting at a 49% clip on third down. Like that's where this game will come down to, is can you put him in a position where Drew Aller has to throw the ball and he has to win the game. The one thing that also is going to play a major factor in this, Tyler Warren is their leading receiver by almost 50 catches this year. He's got 81 receptions.
He's got 101 targets. He's second in college football, I believe. I think
their second leading receiver, Harrison Wallace. By the way, Aronde Gadsden, his dad, Aronde Gadsden Sr., played for the Portland Forest Dragons. Little arena football there, and then went on to play for the Miami Dolphins. But anyways, Penn State's second leading receiver is Harrison Wallace. He has been dinged up, did not play last week. He has 35 catches on the year.
And that's
81 to 35. And you know who the third leading receiver, how many catches he has?
16.
18. Omari Evans has 18 catches on the year.
2 a game.
there is a dramatic fall off. And so if Harrison Wallace is still out, that is a big injury.
And that's
for Penn State.
You have to have more weapons than that against this Oregon defense. Like that's the thing is like, and again, Penn State, they are very good in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Like that,
both sides.
There's no doubt about that. They continue to be very good there. That historically, no matter who the coach is, no matter where the program is at, they do very well in the trenches. And they've got pass rushers, they've got interior run stoppers, like you talked about, being able to stop Oregon's run game. But I thought this is an interesting note. I can't remember who had it, but this doesn't necessarily mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but I think the math behind it is really interesting. Did you know that the Ducks are 1-5 against the spread when they don't convert at least 50% of their third down conversions?
I would not be surprised, no.
It's an interesting thing when you talk about the spread being only 3.5. You know what I mean? Because if they're saying that they don't cover that difference, which is they're basically saying this is, at home Oregon would be a little under a touchdown favorite, but neutral site they're saying 3.5 points. But if they're saying that here, if Penn State can do what you want to talk about Oregon doing to Penn State, which is limit them on third downs, they're basically saying it's a coin toss. That's what the math says here. And I think that's an interesting way to look at this because I do think Penn State's defense is good. When I say paper tiger, I'm talking entirely about their offense. I don't think that Penn State's offense is anywhere close. I mean, look, you want to talk about mutual opponents, right? Ohio State, 20-13 game. It was ugly as sin. And meanwhile, was Oregon, Ohio State was 32-31? Or is it 32-33?
32-31.
32-31.
Yeah.
I mean, look, not every game is going to be the same. Everything's going to play out. But you go watch that Ohio State-Penn State game, there wasn't a big chunk play to save anyone's life. Ohio State-Oregon, there were chunk plays. There were big play opportunities, and that's because both teams had or have game breakers. Tyler Warren is a game breaker in a different sense. He's not going to chunk you with the big plays over and over and over again. He'll make the monumental play on third down or in the red zone, which is incredibly important. But I don't think that it's going to come down to that because they're not going to have the ability to keep pace with Oregon and the weapons that they have, both running and playing on the edges. And I think that's the difference between these two teams. You can say that Oregon's defense and Penn State's defense, even if Oregon's is a little bit better, that they're comparable. I think the offenses are drastically different.
And I think one thing that Oregon has going for it right now is health at the right time, right? Tez Johnson coming back against Washington, and albeit, and I said this on Monday when you were gone, but the first half, they were using Tez as a decoy, but they got him loose a little bit in that second half. He had 3 catches on the night, and he appears to be feeling okay. You're trending in the right direction. Jordan Birch is back. Jamari Caldwell did not miss a game after, falling hard on that shoulder against Wisconsin. They appear to be as healthy as can be heading into the Big Ten championship game, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact they took care of their schedule and really didn't have to grind very many games out until you got to Wisconsin in November. I mean, they had afforded the ability to kind of pull their foot off the gas and play the long game instead of, blasting teams into oblivion, because as long as you win, you don't need the style points, right? And they afforded that luxury of not having to get style points because they kept on churning out win after win after win. And now here we are in the Big Ten championship game where Penn State has had some nicks, dings up front in the interior of their defensive line. Right tackle has been an issue for Penn State over the last couple of weeks, which I don't know if you want to play against an Oregon team with one of your edges being of concern. And Oregon is on the flip side of that, getting healthy in all the right spots. And obviously, as I mentioned, Harrison Wallace also, your second leading receiver, being out. That could be a big one. We're going to have to monitor that and see kind of where Harrison Wallace is heading into this game on Saturday.
Well, speaking of monitoring, why don't we check in on the Portland Trailblazers after last night's game, wrapping up the NBA Cup qualifying rounds. We'll get into that, and we'll do just kind of a temperature check of where the Portland Trailblazers are at in this season. Coming up next year on Danny and Dusty, 1080 The Fan.
Hello.
Portland Trailblazers fall 127-105 to Los Angeles Clippers last night and fall to 8-14 on the season. Quick little check-in. How is everybody feeling now? Are they losing enough?
Rust was antsy yesterday because they're not losing enough for his liking. But I was telling him, like, just pump the brakes. We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
This is far too early in the season to already have 8 wins.
It's actually not. Like they're like I said, they've been 2 wins ahead of pace since they had 4 wins when they picked up the 2 against the Pelicans. Okay,
half their wins ago.
Here is the math. According to the net rating, Cleaning the Glass, they are a negative 8.3. It is the 4th worst point differential in the NBA.
Okay, this is the thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
I watch them, and it's perfect. If you want to, this Blazers team is perfect for an early bedtime. Because I watched them through 3 quarters last night, and I was like, you know what? I've had enough. I know how this is going to finish. And I was happy with what I saw through 3 quarters. Yeah. I mean, I stuck around for the rest of it, and, that wasn't pretty. But I was happy enough with what I saw through 3.
Okay, so here's how I want to emphasize this, okay? They have 14 losses in the season. Let's just go through these real quick, okay?
All right.
The Clippers, 20-point loss. That's 1, okay? Dallas Mavericks, a 6-point game. That's not a double-digit loss, okay? Indiana Pacers, 7-point game, not a double-digit game. Memphis Grizzlies, they lose by 25. That's another 20-point loss. The Houston Rockets, 88-116. It's another 20-point loss. 99-109 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is a 10-point loss. The Memphis Grizzlies, 134-89. That is another 20-point loss. Minnesota Timberwolves, 102-127, another 20-point loss. San Antonio Spurs, 13-point loss, another 10-point loss. Oklahoma City Thunder again, another 20-point loss.
Whoa.
104-140, the Golden State Warriors, a 20-point loss. That is 7 of their 14 losses are by 20 or more.
How you feeling now, Rust? Does that make you feel any better?
No.
That is getting absolutely stomped. Their wins, okay? Their wins. Think about this. The Pelicans, again, early in the season, it was the Blazers' first win of the season. 125-103 on a back-to-back against the Pelicans that was missing everybody. A 1-point win over the Clippers.
Yeah, look, they're not going to be good.
But again,
we know this.
I know, but this is where, like, everybody who keeps saying that, like, they're winning too much, they're not losing. Like, their wins have been by the skin of their teeth or against teams that are just out of control bad. The Pelicans, the Timberwolves in the bad vibes era. The Kings are struggling to find their identity. You had a Rockets team that was like, we already won one, and we're a bunch of kids. And you had a Hawks team, 114-110, that, Trae Young was efficient, but he had 6 turnovers. The Hawks, I believe, had 25 turnovers in that game. It was insane. Like, it's all of these little outliers. So basically,
I think you're setting us up for Friday, Sunday. They're going to win back-to-back games because they got the Jazz and the Lakers.
Yes, well,
the struggling Lakers right now.
Yep, they could be on that list, but the Jazz. I mean, look, if the Blazers lose to the Jazz, oh boy, they are a level of bad that you cannot comprehend. Them and the Wizards. The Wizards just lost every game this past month.
Yeah,
14 in a row.
We talked about that briefly, the Suns-Lakers game where the Suns beat the doors off the Lakers in the NBA Cup because you need the point differential. We talked about the 2-minute and 2-second stretch of missed shots, 9 missed shots in a row by both of those teams. The Lakers are not playing good basketball.
They're not good on offense or defense. Or all of the Anthony Davis MVP campaign stuff. That stuff's out the window because they're asking him to do so much defensively because LeBron James is not who he used to be. Shockingly, the guy who's going to be 40 years old next week is not the guy he used to be. Father
Suck
Time,
it, Lakers.
still undefeated. Nobody else on that roster plays defense. Dalton Knecht is a fun little shooter, but no defense. They've moved D'Angelo Russell to the bench because he's not good. Rui Hachimura is not a great defender. Like, you just go up and down the roster. Austin Reeves, Hillbilly Kobe. The defense
Yeah.
isn't there. Like, and you're asking them to be this team, and they're a playing team, but they're fine. But getting back to the Blazers, what was once a team was like, hey, this is a plucky little defense, right? They're 23rd in the league in defense now.
Yeah, they've hit a wall over their last, what we could call it 5 games. Even in their win, they
Dead last
didn't
in the
look
NBA.
good defensively.
They're
last 5.
Yeah, I mean, last 2 weeks the Blazers are dead last. They're 30th,
Whoa.
121.2 defensive rating. They have a 28th overall point differential at minus 10.7. And the only teams that are worse are the Wizards and Pelicans, who I cannot believe I am saying this, are both minus 19.
Now, Danny, how much can we draw the line of the return of Anthony Simons to them and their deterioration on defense? Because that line coincides with when Anthony Simons returned to the lineup.
Interestingly enough, they're better on defense by a lot with Anthony Simons on the floor.
But how can you as a team get that much worse? I mean, that's when he came back.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm just telling you. When he's on the floor, they are 7 points better defensively.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It doesn't really make a ton of sense. But they are. That the numbers bear it out. The math bears it out. You just kind of look at it and you're like, that's kind of interesting because Ant's not a good defender. I shared this on the postgame show and on Twitter.
I wonder if they are better when he's on the floor, but overall collectively, they're not. Like, because of rotations get messed up when he is off the floor, your machinations don't make as much sense as a collective.
I guess you can kind of say that, but I mean, by him being there, it pushes Denny Avdia to the bench, who's a good defender. So you would think that they would be better theoretically with Ant on the bench and Scoot and Denny on the floor. But the problem is Scoot has been horrendous.
Well, and not a plan.
Oh yeah, but I mean, just as in general, Scoot has been horrendous defensively this year with him on the floor. The Blazers are mildly better offensively. I want to say it's like 1.5 points per 100 better. But I think it's like 9 or 11. I need to check the updated points worse with him on the floor defensively.
Boy, Denny's looked good the last couple games, though.
And he is finding it. You'll remember 2 weeks ago or so, I talked to Denny and I was like, hey man, I wasn't trying to record this, but like I just want to kind of get where you're at. And he's like, I'm not worried. I like, you have to remember, I just moved here. Like, he just moved here at the end of September, mid-September, right before training camp. What's going on back home in Israel? He gets traded in June. He doesn't come back out, or he goes back home, stays out there. He came to LA, I think, twice during the summer to work out and take care of some stuff. But then he went back home, so he's dealing with everything that's going on in the world there in Israel. But he's also 23 years old. He told me, he goes, look, man, I don't know anybody out here. Like, anybody. I don't have friends or family. Like, nobody else came out here with me. I don't know the city. I don't know people out here. He's like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know the training staff. Like, I don't even know who to go work with, how to go work with. Like, there's just a lot of stuff. I've got to find a place. I've got to move. It's a different culture. And one of the things that Denny told me has been helpful is that there are 3 Jewish coaches on staff with the Trailblazers, and that has been something that he can lean on those guys culturally to ease things for him. Which Portland, not a giant Jewish community. It is what it is. If you go out to Washington D.C., a much larger Jewish community there to work with. There's more familiar cultural sentiments. And then you talk about, then that's all the off the court stuff. We haven't touched the on court stuff, which he's not familiar with his teammates. They're installing a new offense. Guys are trying to figure out roles. You've got young guys that are trying to figure out where they are in the hierarchy and the pecking order. Veterans are trying to figure out where they are because they're trying to position themselves for either a next contract or a trade or whatever else that is. And Denny was incredibly balanced in how he kind of went about things, and he really just put all the blame on him. He goes, it's all been me. I just need to work through some stuff, and I'll eventually get there. Fast forward 2 weeks, and he's been playing incredibly well, and I think you're seeing not even the best version of him yet. Yeah, he's knocking down threes, but he's still shooting 56% at the rim when he's a career roughly 70% finisher. So for all of the losing this team is going to do and continue to do, one of the things I think you're going to see over the next couple of weeks is Danny Avdia kind of rounding into form, and you're kind of seeing what the value he's going to bring in the long term.
I've liked what I've saw over the last handful of games from Denny. I think he really is starting to find his rhythm and find his role on this team. DeAndre Ayton has also looked good. Last night he looked good. I thought it was like you saw him in rhythm, taking shots. I like DA being back, missing Donovan Clingan. Boy, and Robert Williams, when those two guys not being available, you see that front court luxury that the Blazers had. It goes away really quickly.
Yeah, having 4 centers and having to go down to 2 is a problem. And, I'll maybe we'll roll this over. Coming up next, we'll get to some comments from the Vancouver 4 text line and put a nice little bow on some Blazers talk. But first, here's the Big Kahuna with the Sports Center update.
This is Big Ten Championship Week with Denny and Dusty.
Brought to you by Mods PDX. The future of building is here.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys into whom you can place your trust. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks remain number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. A win over Penn State in Saturday's Big Ten championship game would ensure them of a first-round bye in the 12-team tournament. The other byes currently projected to go to number 2 Texas, number 8 SMU, and number 10 Boise State. Over in college ball, or still in college ball, Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara has entered the transfer portal. He'll look to play his 7th season elsewhere. In his 2 seasons with the Hawkeyes, he threw for 1,522 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 picks. In the NFL, free agent safety Micah Hyde has re-signed with the Bills and will begin on the practice squad. His contract with Buffalo ended after last season. He remained unsigned this season after previously contemplating retirement. Jaguars have placed quarterback Trevor Lawrence on injured reserve after suffering a concussion Sunday against the Texans. And in the association, the Pelicans announced Zion Williamson will miss at least 2 more weeks as he continues to rehab his left hamstring. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker has a new long-sleeve tee and hoodies in your favorite college colors. Get yours now at 1080thefan.com.
couple texts on the Vancouver Ford text line. We're on the Portland Trailblazers and winning too much. I'd like 4-18 a lot more, and they're winning too much. They're the 7th pick right now. No, they're not the 7th pick right now. They're 7th in the lottery right now. And if you remember, the Detroit Pistons have had one of the worst, if not the worst record in the NBA, and have fallen back the maximum number of spots 5 straight years. The literal lottery winner last season was 10th. The San Antonio Spurs were not in the bottom 3 in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. You can go down the list more often. Ever since the lottery odds have been flattened, it's been a crapshoot. And
you're just setting this up for the Wizards to get the number 1 pick.
Look,
That's all you're doing.
They
right now.
absolutely could. Look, the math says yes, but the math also doesn't say yes by a distinct amount. I don't know if I agree with the flattening of the lottery odds. I get it as this whole like. It's the deviation from tanking. It's the scourge of the league. It's like, but who is it? Who has really deviated from it? The Philadelphia 76ers might steer into the skid and take a gap year. The Pelicans are pulling the plug.
Yeah,
like that's happening. The Washington Wizards.
Oh no way! Zion got hurt again.
I mean,
no way.
Obviously, I haven't been in here the last couple of days, so I haven't gotten to talk about
brutal,
this.
Man.
It's not just that. They've both changed agencies, and I don't know if you know this, but Brandon Ingram just signed with Clutch.
Yeah.
And that, if you remember right, Clutch is Anthony Davis's agency. Remember how he didn't play for the Pelicans until he got traded? And then he did play like twice because the NBA stepped in, and then Anthony Davis wore a "That's all, folks" t-shirt, but it was not set up that way. It was totally coincidental. I don't think Brandon Ingram... There's a chance that Brandon Ingram has played his last game for the Pelicans. Like he may not return from injury.
Yikes!
Like that's the kind of hellscape they're in right now. And you just look at this, and yes, like it's the flattening of the odds is supposed to discourage teams, but it's still the best way to be successful. And so you're gonna have teams that are chasing it. Like right now, you've got Utah, you've got Portland, you've got Washington.
Well, then why isn't Portland doing that?
I mean, I think they are. Again, the math says right now that they should only have 6 wins. They are,
yeah, but they have 8.
And again, when you look at how things have broken out, the Lakers, the Suns, and the Blazers are the top 3 teams in the NBA that have overperformed expectation based on net rating. The Blazers have outperformed their expectations by 2.2 games.
Yeah, I understand that. And those 2 games seem a lot larger now than they will in the grand scheme. Yes, and that's where you just say pump the brakes. They'll lose some games that they probably shouldn't lose in that regard too. Like, I don't know,
Jazz?
Friday would be a good start.
Look, you lose that game, like that actually it does carry more weight. When you lose to the worst of the worst, those actually like the unexpected ones, those offset the unexpected wins as well, like winning 2 against Minnesota.
Yeah, but in the reality though, if they rattle off, and this is the thing though, when you watch this team, you say, I mean, it's watchable basketball. They actually probably should be better than what their 8-14 record now says, right? Like there was a time where they got down, was it 19-9 in the first quarter, and you're like, oh, well, this one's over. Mm-hmm. And then they whittle their way back, and then they keep fighting their way through. Midway through the third quarter, wheels fall off, and you go, for 2.5 quarters, it looked like a team that was better than what we're expecting. And I think that is growth, and that's what people should want to see is you lose in the fourth quarter, but you're competitive in that middle part of the game.
And that's the big part of this is as much as everybody's like, well, they need to be worse. The second they're worse, you're sitting here screaming, trade this person, fire this coach. And it's like, you don't get to have it both ways, guys. You don't get to have development and go 0 of 82. That's not how it works.
Yeah. And I think that it's also a good point to see what's going on in New Orleans right now where, Brandon Ingram wants out. Look, there's plenty of guys that are trade bait for the Portland Trailblazers right now, but they are seemingly content with playing for Portland, right?
Yes.
It's like the injuries have been legitimate and not a hey, he's hurt and he just doesn't want to play here anymore.
Yeah, we don't need to make this up as we go. So
yeah. I mean, this organization is not the most well-oiled machine and well-run in the NBA. Far from it. But you're looking at what's happened in New Orleans for a third time now that this has happened with New Orleans. where you've had guys just going, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to play here. I want to be out. And we haven't seen that here in Portland. I think that for the Chauncey naysayers, I will say it again. You won't find a better coach right now. Is he the coach of the future? I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably
you
not.
You could say it, probably not.
But right now, you're not going to find a better guy, and he has them playing hard, and guys are seemingly okay with going through this Shawshank S-pipe.
And with that, when we come back, we'll put a nice little bow on today's show before I hand you off to Isaac and Suk on Primetime here on Danny and Dusty.
It's time for a Blazers report on the Fan. The inside story on the Portland Trailblazers. Brought to you by Aztec Willie's Taqueria.
The Portland Trailblazers fall to the Los Angeles Clippers 127-105 last night in the Toilet Bowl, the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, thus ending their chances for a continued run in the NBA Cup. What that means is the Portland Trailblazers have also gotten their 2 games assigned to them that they didn't already have. They come into the season with 80. They get 2 more after the NBA Cup opening rounds. They will play on December 13th and December 15th. The 13th against the San Antonio Spurs at Moda Center. The 15th on the road in Phoenix against the Phoenix Suns. The Blazers will also resume play Friday against the Utah Jazz. I would expect to see Scoot Henderson back. It sounded like he was a game time decision last night in Los Angeles. A couple more days on that bruised thigh to get him back. Also, it sounds like Donovan Clingan, while not making a return anytime soon, does sound like he's working his way back. This Trailblazers Report on the Fan is brought to you by Aztec Willie's Taqueria, the best place to go before and after games or any event. Check them out on the corner of Southeast 15 and Broadway or at AztecWillies.com.
Aztec Willie's Taqueria has been Portland's destination for homestyle Mexican food for 30 years. Get ready for your team with our daily happy hour from 3 to 6. Can't make the game? Watch it live at Aztec Willie's on the corner of 15th and Broadway. Mention this ad and get $2 off. Savings on orders of $10 or more.
The Seahawks hit the road.
Gino turns, hands to Charbonnet. He's going to take it in. Touchdown, Seahawks!
And the NFC West is up for grabs.
Well, we talk about December football, and when you want to be playing your best ball, we won. That's all that matters. So it's about stacking those wins. And you got to play a certain brand of ball to win in December. And this is all you can ask for is a chance to take it home down the stretch.
Talk about it and get the inside story from your home of the Seahawks and the NFL. 1080.
Holy catfish!
The Fan.
Have you ever wanted to drive a MAX train? Now's your chance. Get in the driver's seat at TriMet with pay starting at over $30 an hour with a hiring bonus of $7,500. That's right, a $7,500 hiring bonus, along with great health benefits and a generous retirement plan. And now a monthly childcare subsidy. Steer your career and apply today at TriMet.org/MaxOperator. Again, that's TriMet.org/MaxOperator. TriMet, how life moves.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at tryethos.com. That's tryethos.com.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food, no matter what you're craving. From 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings. Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Hey, it's Dusty. Victorico's breakfast tacos are the perfect way to start your day. Fresh eggs, savory meats, creamy chipotle sauce, and all the flavors you love. They're fast, delicious, and ready to go. Visit them in store or order online for takeout at victoricos.com.
This holiday at T-Mobile, I'm joined by a special co-anchor.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Big Snoop D-O-double G.
Snoop, let's talk about T-Mobile.
Okay, cool.
This holiday, get 4 lines for $25 a line. Plus, 4 iPhone 16s with Apple Intelligence and the all-new camera control on us.
Let's get cracking, like a breakfast egg.
You can use those eggs to make some eggnog, Snoop.
Respect.
And people do love T-Mobile, where you can save on every plan versus the other big guys when you switch.
You know, y'all can take some of those savings and buy some Snoop merchandise.
Always a great stocking stuffer, Snoop.
And we up out of here.
Hold your horses, Snoop D-O-double-G. Let's remind people one more time.
Head to T-Mobile.com to get 4 iPhone 16s with Apple Intelligence on us, plus 4 lines for $25. Now drop that jingle.
With 24 monthly bill credits, 4 eligible trade-ins, and 4 new lines with autopay. Well qualified customers plus taxes and fees and $35.
As we get out of here real quick, I just want to say, Cade McNamara, speaking of Big Ten Championship Week, formerly of Michigan, now formerly of Iowa, is entering the transfer portal for year 7. He will be 25 years old when next season starts. We need a rule.
God bless him.
We need a rule. If you can rent a car, you can't stay in college football.
No! No. Keep him in. Let's go.
So if you're a team looking for a college quarterback that's not very good,
he's going to be a doctor.
I mean, goodness gracious. Seventh year quarterback is that's pretty wild.
Yeah,
that's
and
pretty wild.
You know, like Dylan Gabriel's in year 6 with Oregon, and he is, tracking up all of the record books for the career records. I don't think Cade McNamara is.
No, I don't. When I look him up, I don't see him on any of those charts.
Yeah.
So.
Dang. That's tough.
There you go.
Well, hey, welcome back, man.
Yeah, we'll see how we do tomorrow.
Yeah. Your voice is fading fast.
Yes. So.
But glad you're back.
Hey, it's good to be back. I'm not gonna lie. It felt weird to not work for a week.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not I, to be totally blunt, I did not like it.
We have got 4 hours of power from their mouths to your ears. Coming up next is Prime Time with us. Good Souk. Have a great Wednesday. See you Thursday from noon to 3 right here on The Fan.
Bye.
But the thing that I most like to bring out at this time of the year are my balls.
Balls.
We have balls for every taste.
It's been years since I've seen any balls.
Would you like to see my balls now?
You have some beautiful balls.
I can't help but notice, Pete, your balls are a little misshapen.
That's because I rested them on a hot stove for too long.
Can I touch your balls?
Go ahead, but be careful. They're very delicate.
Ooh, I like the way your balls smell.
Do whatever you want to them, ladies. My balls are here for your pleasure. No one can resist my sweaty balls.
We all hear the radio.